This video is a 2-for-1. We're going to be doing it for the CompTIA PenTest Plus practical exercises. That's a tongue twister right there, as well as the Try Hack Me offensive pen testing pathway. And so the exercises that we're going to run in this room apply to both of those lab scenarios, those environments. We're basically going to be using Metasploit to hack into a Windows computer, and then we're going to elevate our privileges and find some credentials and do a hash dump and things like that. And all of those things are directly applicable to CompTIA PenTest Plus practice labs. And so this is going to land on that playlist, and at the same time it's going to land on the offensive pen testing playlist. And I just wanted to let you know, because I don't want you to get mad at me thinking that I'm trying to recycle content. I just think that all of the techniques and everything that we're using are directly applicable to both of those playlists. And it would be a disservice to not share it with the CompTIA PenTest Plus folks, because we have a series of labs. There's going to be probably over 24 labs that I'm going to be sharing with them. And all of the stuff that's inside of this specific video, inside of this training, is going to be directly applicable to everything that people are learning for CompTIA PenTest Plus, which should also sound kind of as a reassuring thing for people who are just studying offensive pen testing and Try Hack Me, to know that all of these exercises that we're going through are actually directly applicable to CompTIA PenTest Plus. So by studying the offensive pen testing playlist, you're also preparing for CompTIA PenTest Plus. That being said, we're going to be doing a room called Blue today. That's basically what it is. And I think the blue represents Windows logo and Windows environment colors and things like that. So we're going to be doing the blue room today. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to show you the overview real quick, and then we're going to jump into the actual exercises. Okay, I stand corrected. Actually, I think blue stands for the vulnerability that we're going to be exploiting. It's called the Eternal Blue vulnerability that applies to a certain year of Microsoft Windows computers. And so I think that's where it comes from. It could be potentially for the logo, but I think it's because the vulnerability itself is called the Eternal Blue vulnerability. So we're going to be deploying and hacking into a Windows machine, leveraging common misconfiguration issues. And the way that it breaks down is the first task, we're just going to do a bunch of reconnaissance to try to find out what we can potentially attack. Then we're going to leverage one of those vulnerabilities, which is that Eternal Blue vulnerability, to gain access to the machine. And then we're going to escalate our privileges to increase our privileges to the system level privileges. And then from there, we're going to crack into the hash dump, or get a bunch of credentials to be dumped and the hash values of those credentials, so that finally we can log into the escalated users, those higher level users, the privileged users, to find the flags at the very end. So it's relatively short and straightforward when we look at the overview like this, but it is a complex series of tasks that we're going to run. And you know, for anybody who's trying to do anything with pen testing, this is actually one of those really cool rooms that you get to apply all of those skill sets and actually find the break-in point, and then actually break in, and then from there elevate privileges and do a hash dump and get escalated privileges to finally be able to steal data. Essentially, capturing the flag means that we're stealing the data that is meant to be hidden from us, right? So that's basically what it is that we're going to be doing. I'm super excited about it. If you don't have access to Try Hack Me, I highly encourage you to get it. I think it's totally worth the money. There's a lot of different labs in here. There's hundreds of free labs, but then there's, I think overall, probably several hundred, maybe like 1,000 or more than 1,000 rooms that are available, with a bunch of different lab exercises and virtual machines and attack boxes and all those things. And all of these things are going to be useful to you to practice the skill of hacking into computers and into machines, and ultimately elevate your skill set so that you can get into cybersecurity, pen testing, IT, AI engineering, whatever it is that you want to do. I think all of these things will be relevant to the stuff that's inside of this entire pathway. I'm done talking about it. Let's do a quick little introduction from Hackaholics Anonymous, and then we're going to jump into Recon. To get the PenTest Plus notes, practice questions, and to join a supportive community of like-minded people like you, consider joining the Hackaholics Anonymous membership community. We have 4 tiers: the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. And each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels will get exclusive content like line-by-line code explanations for how to create cybersecurity and PenTest Plus scripts, like exclusive downloads that they will get. For example, the notes document for this PenTest Plus and everything that I'm using for the lectures, as well as all of the practice questions and everything else that will go along, that will be made for the scripts and everything else that we're going to be doing for the PenTest Plus training series. There will be free pre-made monthly Python automations that have to do with system administration, cybersecurity defense, as well as, of course, PenTest Plus and ethical hacking. And then there's going to be monthly live streams with me every single month, plus so many other things that you would get as a part of being a member of Hackaholics Anonymous in these tiers. To join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there. Or you can go to youtube.com/@hankhackshackers/join, and you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. Now, without further ado, let us continue with PenTest Plus. All right, there isn't much in terms of lecture materials or instructions or anything like that, really. We have to start the virtual machine, which is, this green button that you see right here. This button originally was colored that neon green. And then at the very top of the room, this button right here, this show split view, was originally called start attack box. So when I click on it, now it actually gives me this split view, but I'm super zoomed in. So we're going to open it up inside of a second window so that we actually get to see everything nicely like that. Perfect. And so that's basically it. Now, as far as the information or the instructions, I should say, they say scan and learn what exploit this machine is vulnerable to. Machine does not support to ping and may take a few minutes to boot up. It's not meant to be a boot to root CTF. Rather, this is an educational series for complete beginners. Professionals will likely get very little out of this room beyond basic practice, as the process here is meant to be beginner focused. So if you've never done anything with hacking, then this is perfect for you. If you've done some hacking things, this is kind of like review for exercises, and I'm pretty sure you're going to have an easy go at it, because they do tell you what it is you need to do. They don't do a lecture around it, but they do tell you, hey, first do this and then do this and then do this. And then they try to kind of make it a little bit difficult by telling us that we need to go ahead and Google certain commands and certain exercises and things like that so that we can pull the information. And you'll see what I'm talking about. So there is one of the members, Varg, which is, I guess these are the people who created the art, right? So this is actually new. I've never seen this. So this is a shout out to Varg, the person who created the art for this room. The link to ICE, the sequel to Blue Link. That's cool. Okay, so that's going to be something that we can do after this one. You can check out the third box in this series, which is Blaster here. Okay, and the virtual machine that's used in blue can be downloaded for offline usage from this. Oh, that's actually cool. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So if you wanted to do this, there we go. This is nice. So you can actually download these virtual machines. I did not know that you can even do this. So this is actually really handy that you can do this. And these are all virtual machines that you can download and install using something like VMware or VirtualBox. And from there, you can run Metasploit hacks against it. I definitely encourage you to do this. If you don't have access to Try Hack Me, this is a really powerful resource. I had no idea about this resource. I'm going to start talking about it more and more and more. So this is from the darkstar7471.com/resources. And what we're on, basically, if you just go to darkstar7471.com and you click on resources, it'll bring you to this page. And these are training resources. These are virtual machines that you can download and install using something like VirtualBox and do hacks against them. That's really cool that that exists. I'm genuinely impressed that it exists. And shout out to Darkstar7471 on Twitter, or I guess X now. Super shout out to that person for doing this, because that is really, really cool and super exciting. So very, very excited about that. Okay, so scan the machine. If you're unsure how to tackle this, I recommend checking out the Nmap room. So we already know how to use Nmap. If you don't already, you're about to get a nice little crash course into it. How many ports are open with port number under 1000? And what is this machine vulnerable to? Answer in the form of MS, etc. For example, that. Okay, so we're looking for the number of ports that are open. And then what we want to do as we're doing that is we want to kind of get an idea of the various services and things that are running for that. So first thing I'm going to do is I want to do port and then we're going to do 1 to 1000 because I know I'm going to be scanning based on the instructions. They said that we're going to be doing it anything lower than the 1000 number. So that's what I'm interested in, is that range of ports. I'm going to do SV, so lowercase s, uppercase V, to try to get version information about everything. And at the same time, I mean, I think that's pretty much it, really. I'll do -V for verbose, just so I can get some verbose details output. And then what I need is this information, which is that IP address of the target machine that we need to scan. And we're going to paste that over here, and we're going to press enter and let this thing run. And hopefully we'll be able to get some interesting information. So we have 1, 2, and 3 ports that are open. And then they're going to get us as much information about the services running on those ports. Here we go. So we got 135, 139, 445. So we have 3 ports that are open: Microsoft Windows RPC, Windows NetBIOS, and Windows 7 to 10 Microsoft DS. So these are the versions of things that are running. So obviously we knew that we were dealing with Microsoft. So Windows 7 to 10 is a really, really key piece of information. So Microsoft DS, Windows 7 to 10. And we're trying to find what vulnerability it would be vulnerable to. So let's go ahead first and answer the first set of questions here. So the first one just says run it. The next one says how many ports are open. So we're going to do the 3 right here. And then it says, what is it vulnerable to? So there are a few different ways that we can do this. We can Google this. We can also open up and run Metasploit. So if I do MSF console, because I already read ahead before I started recording, and we're going to be using Metasploit anyways. So if we open up Metasploit console, we could actually search by operating systems to try to see what vulnerabilities potentially exist for an operating system, right? So if I know that it's running Windows 7, right, or Windows 7 to 10, I should say, I can potentially search for something like that. I can actually search through all of the exploits that are available on Metasploit and then try to see what I can do. And now this is what's nice about it. There's 2,502 exploits. There's 1287 auxiliaries, 431 post modules, and then there's 1,600 plus payloads and encoders and non-operationals, etc. So there's a lot of really good stuff that's available inside of Metasploit. So let us go ahead and try to find as soon as it finishes loading. Perfect. Okay, so basically what you can do as basic as this, you can do search, and then you can do Windows, let's say 7. I'll do Windows 7. And let's see what we can find for Windows 7. There is a lot of stuff. Holy cow. Okay, this is too much. So, so let me see if I can do something like, I'm going to have to kind of hone in on this a little bit. So let's try something else. Okay, so I looked up something because this was actually important. I knew that you could do this. So you could actually search by type. So you see how right here it says exploit, but then if we went up a little bit more, we might be able to see auxiliary results as well, and we might be able to see encoder results and things like that. So I only want to see exploits. That's the thing that I'm most interested in. And so what I can do is search type exploit, and I can do Windows, and then there's this option right here where we can do 7 or 8 or 9, I think. I don't know if there was ever a Windows 9, but whatever, or 10, we'll do that. So it's like search type, etc., etc. Okay, so that's definitely not going to work. So let's do exploit, and then from there we'll just search for Windows. Let's see what we can find. There's still a bunch of them, which is an insane amount of results. Really, when you think about it, when you see these numbers right here, that means it's giving me 3,000 freaking results for Windows exploits, which is insane. It's insane to think about. So, all right, so there has to be a better way that we can do this. And what we're trying to do is maybe search for Microsoft DS. Maybe we could do that. So I'm going to mess around with a few different search queries because I don't want to just give you the answer. There are ways, because I know already what we're trying to attack and I know exactly what the actual exploit is, but I'm trying to find it and show you how I found it so that you can do this instead of me just handing and spoon feeding the answers to you. So let me go ahead and try to find out what we can do right here, okay? Okay, so unfortunately, there's still just way too many results to try to narrow it down. So one of the other ways that we can do this is we can try to see the types of services that should be running on these various ports. So what we can see is, MSRPC, NetBIOS, Microsoft DS, etc. So if I go ahead and, for example, do a search for what service runs on port 445, I want to say. And port 445 is server message block. So that's something that we can do. And file sharing and printing on Microsoft Directory Services. SMB is also the short version of it. So we could technically do search, type, exploit, and then do SMB. And let's see what shows up. Much smaller list. So now we have 200 something. So we have now SMB, and there's a lot of different interesting things in here as well. So let's see now from this, maybe we can actually narrow this down a little bit and see what might be relevant to us, because now we actually have Windows as a part of these versions and things like that. So what we can do is, there it is. I didn't even have to scroll up very much. So exploit Windows SMB MS17 Eternal Blue. That's the name that we're looking for. And remote Windows kernel pool corruption, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. So all of these things are applicable to this thing that we're doing right here. So very much what we are interested in this regard. So MS17010 could be the answer in this particular case. So what we do, MS17_010. That is not it. Okay. So it's actually not a underscore. It's a hyphen. So MS17010 is right. It's just not an underscore. It's a hyphen. So, okay, great. We got the answer. So we're looking for the MS17010, which is what? Eternal Blue, ladies and gentlemen. This is the one that we're looking for here. So excellent. So we were able to kind of narrow it down and find exactly what it is. So now we need to gain access to this machine. And of course, we're going to be doing it with our friend Metasploit. So the first portion just says start Metasploit, and it says find the exploitation code that will run against the machine. What's the full path of it? Which is this full thing right here. So this is what we're talking about, this full path of this. Now, specifically, we're looking for the Eternal Blue one. So this is the one that we're looking for. And we're going to copy that right there, and we're going to go over here and paste that. There you go, perfect fit. And now it says show options and set the one required value. What is the name of this value? Okay, so first let's go ahead and actually use it. So we need to set our option for this. So we need to go into this module, and the easiest one is to just refer to the number that's assigned to it during this search. So when you search through anything, the number that's assigned to it will change based on what your search was. So it's never going to be always 182, right? So it's going to change. But in this particular case, based on these search results, it's 182. So we're going to do use 182. And now it's going to change it to, you see our command line turned into this full thing right here. So what we need to do is find out what the options are for this and what is actually required. So it says payload options. These are all required. If we go up here, we're looking for the other options. So it says for this exploit, we see show R hosts is actually required. Yes. What else is required? R port, but that's preset to us. Verify architecture is also required, and it's preset. Target required is also preset. So the only one that has not been set yet that is required is R hosts. So we can go ahead and put that in here. And then from here, so it says usually it would be fine to run this exploit as it is. However, for the sake of learning, you should do one more thing before exploiting the target. Enter the following command and press enter. So set payload Windows x64 shell reverse TCP. That's what we're trying to use. Now, this is what we saw already, right? So this is the module options, right? And then we have the payload options right here. And you can see that the payload specifically right now is not the one that they just showed to us. So what we can do while we're here, we can even do this. We can do show payloads, and it'll show us all of the payloads that are available for this module. And so as it stands right now, there are 73 payloads available. And, payload Windows x64, VNC inject, and then there's a bunch of VNC injects, and we have shell reverse TCPs, and a bunch of different types of payloads that are available. So the one that they are referring or that they're recommending is to be this one. So I'm just going to copy this one. Set payload Windows x64 shell reverse TCP. Now in the real world, nobody's going to give you that recommendation. So most likely you're going to have to do a bunch of trial and error. And the recommendation is to create some kind of a script, like some kind of an automation that will actually do this for you and just iterate through each one of these payloads until it finds the one that actually establishes a connection. And then that way you can save a lot of physical energy that you would and time that you would have to just sit here manually testing each one. So we're going to do set payload here, and then we're going to change it to that payload that they recommended. And there we go. So now our payload is the Windows x64 shell reverse TCP. Excellent. So we also need to set our host, right? So that's the other thing, is that we need to set the host itself. And then finally, once it's connected, we need to background that shell. So assuming that we actually have a connection established. So that's the other piece, that we're kind of assuming that the connection is established before we background it. So we're going to do set our hosts, or is it set our host? What was it? Show options. Let's do that again. And options. So now the payload has changed, as we can see right here, and it's our hosts, yes, with the S at the end. So we're going to do set our hosts, and then we're going to go ahead and paste the code. There we go, the IP address. And so there we go, our host has now been set. So we can verify that again by just doing show options and scroll to the top, and we can see that our host has actually been set to the IP address. Excellent. So our port is already preset for us because we're using server message block, right? That's the port that we're trying to go ahead and exploit. So now I can either do exploit, or I can type run, whichever one you like, and it'll run the exploit. And hopefully it'll actually establish the connection. And then once that connection is established, we can go ahead and background it so that we can move on to the next section, which is to do the post exploitation. So let's give this a minute and we'll be back. Okay, there it is. So we are now a Windows System 32 computer. So that worked. So who am I? I am NT authority system. Okay, I already have the system authority. I don't think I even need to elevate my privileges, but I have a basic shell here. So one of the things that we want to do is, as much as possible, we want to convert our shell sessions into a meterpreter session. So what do we have here? We have Windows x64 shell reverse TCP, right? Originally, the original payload was a meterpreter payload, which if this would have completed, it would have connected us via a meterpreter session. If you don't know what that means, I would recommend you watch the Metasploit kind of introductory video so that you can understand what meterpreter is. But it's basically like a combination shell that gives us everything for the target machine, which in this case is a Windows machine. But it also gives us all of the modules that are available inside of Metasploit. And even if we wanted to, we can get access to the machine itself that we're in. So we're technically inside of a Linux machine, and we're using Metasploit to connect to a Windows machine. So to integrate the functionality of all of those elements, the Linux machine, Metasploit as a framework, as well as the Windows machine, to get all of those functionalities, we want to convert into a meterpreter shell. That's kind of the goal every single time that we use Metasploit, because it's really, really powerful. So for the most part, we were able to do all of these things, right? We got all of it done. I did set the payload, I got the connection, and now I want to background this shell, and we may have to reboot the target, which I don't need to do because it actually worked. So excellent. So what do we have to do? That's it. So we just need to background the shell before we move on to the Escalate portion. So I'm going to go ahead and mark complete all these. I'm going to background the shell by doing Control Z. Actually, let me just show you what that looks like. So if I just go here and I do Control Z, and it says background session, I'm going to say yes, press enter, and now my shell is backgrounded, and now you can see that I am now back in my original command line. So now I can do this. I can do sessions and press enter, and it now shows me all of my active sessions right now, which is that shell x64 Windows, and that's here. So session ID is 1, and this is very important when we use post-exploitation modules, because post-exploitation modules require an active session that we're going to reference, and you'll see that in a few seconds here. But okay, so we've already backgrounded it, so Control Z, which is very important. It's not, I'm on a Mac computer, so A lot of times I would confuse control with command on Mac, and we're not doing that. We're actually doing control. We're not doing command Z. We're doing control Z. So control Z will background it for us. And now we have our session. So now we can go ahead and mark all these things complete and then go to post. Okay, so Escalate privileges, learn how to upgrade it in Metasploit. And it says if you haven't already backgrounded, we already did that. Now it says research how to convert a shell to interpreter in Metasploit. What is the name of the post module that we're going to use, exact path, etc. So we're going to be using a post module. That's a hint right here. And then we're trying to turn a shell into an interpreter. That's another hint. And it says select the module, so use the module path, show options. What options are required to change? This, I guarantee you, the answer to this is going to be sessions. And now it says, or session, I should say, set the required option, and then it's going to be session 1 for us, and run. If it doesn't work, try completing it from the previous task. I hope it works on the first try. And once the interpreter completes, select that session for use. Okay, great. Verify that you've escalated to NT authority system, which, by the way, we already were. So this is kind of the thing, because when I ran Who Am I, you saw that it said NT authority system. So run get system to confirm. Feel free to open a DOS shell and run shell and Who Am I, and this should return that we are indeed system. Background, again, we were already NT authority system, so I don't know why it did that. List all the processes using PS command. Okay, great. Migrate to this process using the migrate process ID, and that's the last step for this. This one is actually very unstable. Hopefully this works on the first try as well. And that's pretty much it. That's all we got for the requirements for this specific section. So first we need to find out what post module is going to be shell to interpreter. So let's go ahead and do some homework here. So I can technically just exit this module because I no longer need this one. So I can do back, press enter, and now I'm in the regular command line. Let's zoom in a little bit more for you here so you can see what's going on. So now what we need to do is do the search thing one more time. And so type is going to be post, and post modules are much smaller list, thankfully. So post modules, and what we're trying to do is I'm just going to search for interpreter. Interpreter, there you go. Post interpreter, excellent. There's only 20 responses, so that's really exciting. And there we go, post multi-manage shell to interpreter. That's the one I think that we are most interested in because that's literally, it says shell to interpreter. So I think that's it. That's actually it. So post multi-manage shell to interpreter. So let's go ahead and try that out as an answer here. Okay, there you go. So that's the actual answer. The hint said Google shell to interpreter. I didn't even need to do that. We just did a search inside of Metasploit for interpreter, and we did a type of post, right? So that part is like what makes your life significantly easier when you're searching for anything inside of Metasploit. If you just search for the type of module, for example, a post module, instead of searching for a exploit module or an encoder or something like that. Instead of doing that, if you know exactly what you're looking for, it narrows down the answers a lot. So, okay, so select this and show options. What are we required to do? So we're going to go shell to interpreter, which is number 13 here. So I'm going to do use 13, and there we go. Now we have that. So now we're going to do show options. And now what is it says? It says the session, I told you, session is required, yes. Handler is also required, but it's already been set to true. And it already has a listening port that's also required, that's been set for us as well. So more than anything, it's the session that we are trying to do. And there you go. So session was the answer. Now, set the required option. You may need to list all of these the sessions. So I don't need to do that. I can just do set session to 1. Whoops, not sessions, excuse me. Set session to 1. And now session has been set to 1. So if I do show options, now I can see session is 1. Excellent. Okay, cool. So I mean, I think that's it. I don't need to do anything else because they said after this we can just run it, right? So set the session, run. If it doesn't work, try it again. So fingers crossed. Here we go. We're going to do run. And hopefully this works on the first try. I do not want to redo this. Okay, so no error messages. It says post module execution completed, and it seems to be done. So now what we can do is we can go back, and then we can list our sessions, right? So there it is. and it's still, everything is the same here. So I need to do sessions and then -I and then 1 to interact with 1. And now I'm here. So I mean, it literally still says that I'm NT-authority system. And then what was the other command that it said? So run if it doesn't work, try completing. Once the interpreter shell conversion completes, select that session for use, which I already did. Verify that we've escalated to this. Run get system. So let's run get system. Why don't we do that? Oh no, it stopped my exploit multi-handler. So that's not good. That's not what I want to do here. So I'm still that. So let's do get system. Get system is not recognized as an internal or external command operable on both batch files. So I think maybe that's what that is. So I think maybe that get system is a part of the interpreter element, and it said stopping the exploit multi-handler. That was an issue for me. So now we need to go ahead and background this one more time and click yes. Let's do sessions, and there's our session. And now we're going to go and search for that post module again, interpreter, and try to run it one more time, because that unfortunately did not work. Is there anything else? No, I mean, this is the only one. So it needs to be for that specific one. And I get, they did say that we may need to run it multiple times, which is unfortunate. And it's still session 1 that's been set for me on this. So I'm gonna run it again, and I don't know, man. I'm hoping that this is gonna be stable enough for us to be able to work. Okay, so here's my issue. So I ran the multi-handler multiple times, and post module execution is complete, all of that stuff. I go into the session itself, and now it still says Windows, etc., etc. Get system won't work. The DOS or whatever doesn't work, and if I try to do anything else, it's still, and then now it stops the exploit multi-handler. This is an issue for me, because even in this situation, when I type in who am I, it says I'm NT-authority system, which is what's very annoying about this, because it says we're trying to make sure that we've escalated to this, and we're already there. So that's what's really kind of obnoxious to me. So I'm going to move forward as if this is done. Hopefully that noise wasn't overly loud. I'm going to move forward as if this is already done, and then we're going to list all of the processes via the PS command to see what is available. So if I do PS, it's not recognizable as an internal or external command, operable, or batch file. Okay, so this is an issue here, because now we can't run the PS command simply because of the fact that I think the interpreter shell is not available for us. So this is the issue at hand here. So we can't move forward. We can't run the PS command until this is fully converted into a multi-handler or a interpreter session. So that is the thing that I need to solve for before we move on. So let me do that, and then I'll tell you exactly what I did. Okay, so here's what I did. I restarted the machine, and I reconnected to it via Metasploit, right? I restarted Metasploit, all of that stuff. And when I went into the MS17 Eternal Blue module, I did not change the payload to anything else. I just left it at the original interpreter payload. And so I set the rhost option with the IP address. So it's blank because I just looked at it. But as you can see, when we get down here, I set the rhost option to the IP address of the new machine that was launched. And then I just ran it. And then at the very end, you can see that we have a interpreter shell at the bottom right here. So now what I'm curious about is if I do who am I, it says unknown command, who am I? Run help for more details. So if I do get system, then it says that we are currently running as system. So I guess that is not necessarily what we're looking for. So if I do shell, there we go, it'll turn it into a shell. And if I do who am I here, it says NT authority system. So when we say shell, it converts it into a shell, and then we can actually get to see that who we are, right? So in that particular case, we're pretty solid. And then this should return that we are in the background, the shell afterwards, and select the interpreter session for usage again. So if I go ahead and background the shell, press enter, and now we're back into the interpreter session. So this is the way that I did it the second time around, and you can see that it actually worked. So if I now run PS, hopefully it'll be able to run the processes for us. There we go. And now it shows us the processes that are actually running under NT authority system, which is a lot of them, or I would say probably all of them, as it looks like right here. And these specific processes we could potentially go ahead and migrate to try to get their level of privileges, even though we're already NTR authority system. You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's a very odd series of steps that they're having us do. I think maybe the original write-up of the lab changed ever since they created it, and now what we're looking at is that literally everything is under NT authority system, and that's what we're supposed to be. We want to be at NT authority system, because it does say there is this one right here. What is it? It says NT authority local service, NT authority system, NT authority system. So I'm already running as NT authority system. I don't need to go ahead and escalate it, which is the piece that's kind of annoying in this whole process. Now, the last element of this, so let me just zoom in for you a little bit here. The last series of steps right here, if we were not already authority system, we would go ahead and migrate, right? So we list all the processes using PS, which we just did. And then we look at the ones that have permissions as the system. And then from there, we would migrate to that process so that we can get those privileges, okay? Now, this is as simple as me doing something like migrate to 2732, which is SVC host, right? So I would do migrate 2732, press enter, and I don't want to risk this crashing on me because I'm already as a system, I already have the interpreter session. So that's the one piece that I don't want to mess up. And so I will give you a piece of advice right here. So let's say in the real world, you're running a pen test exercise and you accidentally get a successful session. So in the real world, you've gotten yourself in a successful session and you had a different series of steps that were outlined that you thought that you had to execute, and something happened and you got the level of permission that you wanted. You do not backtrack. You don't go and do the other thing, right? Because if you're here, the goal is to get here. Now, whether or not you skipped a step or something happened and you were able to get here, you don't want to go back and redo the whole thing and cancel out the success that you've achieved. And if we go back to the original instructions of this previous section right here, so if I go back over here, and if we look at that initial set before we actually did the move where we were like, okay, we're going to change the module right here, right? So it says previously gained shell, interpreter, the module path, and then, actually, I think it was the section before this one where they said, go ahead and change your payload. You remember that one? Where they're like, go ahead and change right here, set the payload. Now, usually it would be fine to run this exploit as it is. However, for the sake of learning, you should do one more thing before exploiting it. Enter the following command and press enter, set payload Windows shell reverse TCP. Why would we do that? If we already, again, right, Metasploit's job is to make this as simple for us as possible to be able to execute something like this. And if the initial configuration of this tool that we have at the very, very top right here, when we get into the Windows SMB Eternal Blue exploit module, if the initial configuration has the interpreter reverse TCP already established for us, and all I had to do at the very end, or after I got my session, I had to just do what? I needed to do shell right here as a command. So it converts it into just a normal shell for me. I can do who am I, and I can see that I'm the system authority, and then I can just background that, and I'm back inside of my interpreter session. Why would I go ahead and make my job harder, right? So I would say this is kind of my piece of advice to you. Other people might do it differently. Other people might teach differently. My thing is, if the tool is designed to help you do something, you should go ahead and leverage the functionality of that tool based on the instructions that they gave us, right? So we changed the module to the shell. We originally connected via that shell, and then we tried to background that and then turn it into an interpreter session using a post-exploitation module. It was unstable and it didn't work, and I had to do it multiple times and it still didn't work. So why would we keep doing that? when you can just go ahead and do this and then you would get the result that you want. So that's my view on this, okay? And it's call it the lazy hacker mentality, because engineers and hackers by nature, they want to find shortcuts. They want to find ways to do things more efficiently, faster, easier. So maybe I'll just, attribute it to that mentality, but it just doesn't make sense for me. And I get it. They're like, yeah, we want you to learn and we want you to learn how to do these things. Totally understand. We tried it and it didn't work. And I still had to restart the machine anyways, and I still had to go and do it the good old-fashioned way anyways. And then I was finally able to get my session. So that's the piece that I'm kind of like, okay, well, you know what, whoever the person was that created this room, usually they put their username at the bottom and we can see who it is that created this room. But whoever it was that created this room kind of gave us a little bit of, I don't want to say incorrect, but they gave us the long road, the detoured type of instructions, and it didn't work. So now I'm just relying on the original version that I know is going to work. And so hopefully this actually works for you. But at the very least, we learned what you can do to look at the list of payloads, to change the payload via the set payload option, and then how to background something and how to refer to something in post-exploitation and go ahead and try to reconnect that original session to the post-exploitation module. At the very least, we were able to do that. But the end goal is for us to get that interpreter session. That's kind of the big piece right here. So now we have the payload, it's already done. We already have that connection. We have the interpreter shell. So now where are we? We're towards the end right here. So it says list all the processes running. Great. I already did that as well. Migrate to this using the migrate process ID. Again, because we're trying to find something that has the authority system, so we can migrate to it so we can get system authority, right? So I'm going to skip this and try to see if I can get this done without migrating to it, because as it says, it may take several attempts. Migrating is not stable. If this fails, you may need to rerun the conversion process or reboot the machine and start once again. If this happens, try a different process next time. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just run it as it is because I already have my system authority and I don't need to go ahead and migrate to anything else to gain system authority. You see what I'm saying? It's like it seems so redundant. So anyways, we're going to mark these two complete. We're going to move to the cracking stage. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'll come back and I'll migrate. How about that? Okay, so here's the next step. Basically, we're just going to do hash dump, which is a command that would be available through Meterpreter. So it says within the elevated Meterpreter shell, run the command hash dump. This will dump all the passwords on the machine as long as we have the correct privileges to do so. What is the name of the non-default user? Copy this password hash to a file and research how to crack it, which is fairly simple. And then we'll go ahead and try to get their password and then find the flags at the very end. So let's go ahead and just run hash dump since we already have our session open here. And if it works, great. If not, we'll do something else. There you go. So, I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like the redundancy of it is just insane. So we were already authority system. We didn't need to do anything else to change it from authority system. We didn't even need to do anything else to gain an interpreter shell. So now we have these three users. We have the admin, which is a system user, guest, which is another system user. These are default users, as they say. And then we have John, which is the third person, the third user. And I want to say the password hash is the first chunk between these colons, but I'm just going to copy this whole piece right here. And we're going to use crack station to try to crack that password. So John, there we go. So there's John. Now copy this and learn how to crack it. So I'm just going to open up a notepad online, like a note editor, online notepad. And we're just going to paste this in here. And then in the next one, we're going to do crack station. And we're going to use each portion of this as a password hash. So I could actually even do this. I'm going to highlight this whole piece right there. Watch the way that I process things. So I go here and we can do enter up to 20 non-salted hashes, right? So we can go ahead and do this and we're just going to delete that, press enter. So now we have two hashes, one per line. And if either of them are the password hash that we're looking for, it'll go ahead and crack it for us. And so here we go. The first one was not the one that we're looking for, so nothing came for that. although it was recognized as an LM password type. It just didn't have anything. The next one is the ALQFNA. So ALQFNA. I don't know exactly what that is, but we're going to copy that and see if that's the guy's password. So let's go here and try it. Okay, so there it is. It worked. So now we can now move on to finding the flags at the very end. Okay, for the flags, they're not traditional flags, rather they're meant to represent key locations within the Windows system. Use the hints provided to complete this. So flag 1 can be found at the system root, which would be C, right? So yeah, can you see it? So that would be basically the C location. The next one is it can be found at the location where passwords are stored within Windows. And then the next one says it can be found in excellent tool. After all, admins usually have pretty interesting things saved, and it says you'll need to have elevated privileges. So since I already have elevated privileges because I'm the system, I'm going to go ahead and just try to find these various locations. So if we do print working directory, it says that we are in Windows System 32. So if I do CD1 and then go up 2 levels and do print working directory, now I'm in C. And I can do ls, I think, and the same thing works when you do dir, which is the Windows version of it. Technically, if we're in a Windows machine, you want to do dir to list the stuff inside the directory. But because we have a interpreter session, you can use ls. If you're also on a Windows machine using PowerShell, instead of the command prompt, the CMD executable prompt, if you're using PowerShell, you can still use ls and it'll still list things for you. But okay, so in the root, we have right here flag1.txt. So I think cat will also work, and cat is the same as using type, which is basically it lists the content of the text file onto the screen. So if I do that, and it says flag access the machine. So that's the actual content that we're looking for here. So we're just going to copy that and go here, and this would be flag 1. And there you go. It worked like a charm. So now the third one is the one where we need admin privileges. It says you'll need to have elevator privileges. And after all, admins usually have pretty interesting things saved. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to go to the users location. And inside the users location, there should be all users, default user, John public, desktop, etc. So I don't know, maybe it would be under public, maybe. So what's inside of public? There is nothing inside of public. So would it be in John's folder? And in John's folder, there's a bunch of things that have been saved. So let's see, in the John's desktop, maybe. Desktop ini, nope. So none of that stuff. So where are we right now? We are in the users folder. So let me see, where would I find the admin user? Oh, I see. So John, I guess, is the admin user. So I just went inside of John's documents and we can see that there's flag 3 right here. So there's that. So flag 3 is admin documents can be valid. I guess John was the admin. I thought that we were looking for the admin, like the administrator user, but we're specifically looking for John. So there's that. And finally, we're looking for flag 2. It can be found at the location where passwords are stored within Windows. And that, I mean, it could be a variety of different locations. So if we look for the format of this, which is flag 3, etc., this is kind of a cheat again. So it's I'm trying to do a little bit of a cheating mechanism here, but we can actually search for things by name. So if I'm looking for a file, and then the name of the file is flag2.txt, it should technically find the path of that flag for me because I know exactly what it is that I'm looking for. Now, in the real world, you may not necessarily know what you're looking for, so you may have to kind of rummage around and roam around inside of the machine itself to try to see where things are stored. So let's see if this actually yields anything for us. If it does, awesome. If not, we'll take another approach. So we'll give it a second. Okay, cool. It worked. Now it's in Windows System 32 configuration. So that's, yeah, that makes sense. So the configuration files is where passwords usually would be stored. And so in this case, we're looking for flag 2. So there it is, right? So I can just do this. I can do the full path of this, and I can just go to Windows System 32, config, and then flag2.txt. and operation failed. The system cannot find the file specified. So did I misspell something? System 32 config flag. I didn't misspell it. So let's go to that location then. So where are we right now? We are inside of John's documents. Okay, so we can do this, go all the way up, and we are now inside of the C. So let's go into Windows. Whoops. Windows, and then CD system 32, right? Where are we? Very good. So now inside of system 32, there should be, oh my God, there's going to be a bunch of stuff. Yeah, okay. So let me see if I can just go into config, which worked. Okay, so now I'm inside of config. Inside of config, there should be fewer things. There we go. Flag 2. I don't know why the original, I don't think I misspelled it. Maybe I did. But okay, there it is. That's the last one. So that's the last flag, the SAM database flag, because that's where passwords are stored. Okay, so that was it for the room that we were in, which was the blue room, which was a pen testing exercise for a Windows machine. And this hopefully was useful to you as learning how to leverage something like Metasploit, how to search through the modules that are available to find specific vulnerabilities, how to modify those modules and customize them, how to set an individual payload, how to, honestly troubleshoot. I personally, if I would start the first way or the second way that we did, where it's like I would run the exploit as is with the initial configuration. If that doesn't work, then you can list all of the payloads the way that we did and then try to find something else to switch to. You don't need to first switch and then backtrack and go back to square one, which is what they made us do essentially. You don't need to do that. You can start with the initial configuration of whatever the exploit is, run it. If it works, amazing, then you have saved yourself a bunch of time and energy, because most of the time, honestly, you don't have a lot of time and energy, and by the time that you troubleshoot and try to use different payloads, they may be onto you and they may catch you and kick you out and then block you, and you won't be able to do anything anymore anyways. So you start with the initial configuration. If it works, great, you're in. You can move on to the next phase of your attack chain. If it doesn't work, then you can go ahead and try to configure and change your payloads and things like that, which is what we did, right? So that was kind of like a weird thing, but whatever. We ended up finding it. We ended up finding the way in, and then we got in. And then if you need to migrate to a different process that's running at a higher privilege, then you can do that. But we didn't need to do that because we had the system authority. You see what I'm saying? That there are a few redundant pieces of information that were there that made me feel like, okay, well, I don't think we needed to do that. And by the time that I caught on, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. I'm just going to go ahead and get the exercise done. So that's pretty much what that was. But again, so let's say that you got in our lower level user and then you did the get system command or who am I, and you saw that you're just a regular user or whatever it is. You can run the process list, look at the process list and find something that's running under the user NT authority system or an admin user, and then you can migrate your session to that process, right? And then by migrating to that process, you will have increased your privilege levels, which all of the instructions were there. So it's not like the instructions themselves were not there and we didn't know what to do. It's just that we didn't need to do it. And I didn't want to waste time and energy and confuse you. If this is like your first time going through something like this, it can be very confusing. If you're seasoned and if you know what's going on, then you're not worried about it. You're not confused. But if for beginners, I can see how this would be confusing and how it would be a pain in the ass, honestly. So yeah, that's, if you needed to do that, you could have done that. But we didn't need to do that, and we were able to get into it. And the password itself was simple enough that we were able to use CrackStation to pull it off. CrackStation is this massive database of like, I don't know how many tens of millions of password entries that are in here. I think it tells us, but there are like millions and millions of passwords that are inside of the CrackStation database. And I always start with CrackStation. And if it doesn't work, then we can go to John the Ripper, or we can go to, I don't know, some Hydra or some other type of tool that will go ahead and help us uncode the or not really uncode. It basically takes a password, right? Or it takes a hash, I should say. It'll take this hash that you see right here, and it'll compare it to a giant database of hash values. And then it'll say, okay, this one actually matches an entry that I have in my database of hash values. And the plain text equivalent of this hash is this, right? And this by itself, for this specific encryption standard, for that specific what's the word? I think it is an encryption for that cryptography. This specific word is not going to get us any other type of hash for NTLM that would be other than this. So if we convert this into NTLM hash, it'll give us this every single time. So that's how it found out the plain text equivalent. Now, if it was using the MD5 hash encryption standard, or if it was using SHA-256, the hash value would be completely different. However, in this particular case, it was using NTLM algorithm, and so it converted into this, and that's how it found it. That's kind of like just an extra piece of information for you. But basically, that's how we found the password for John. We didn't even need to go and log into John. It was just telling us that this is what you can do to try to find the passwords for this specific user, which was very handy, and we were able to figure it out. And now the next piece for that is to go ahead and just find the flags. And we were able to do it by searching for a flag. We were able to go to the C root, which is that very root of Windows machines. And then we were even able to go ahead and go into John's documents and find one of his password files, etc. So it's just a few different ways that you can kind of rummage around. Once you've gotten access to a Windows machine, or any kind of machine really, you can start rummaging around and try to find information that would be relevant to the goal that you have as a pen tester. And when you're doing this in penetration testing exercises, honestly, you're not trying to crash anybody's system. So, you know, an employer hired you to do this. So you're not trying to crash their system and you're not trying to destroy their infrastructure, but you are trying to prove that you got into their system. So you take anything, you take any file and you say, hey, you know, I got into your system. They're like, okay, well, prove it. They're like, okay, well, on this path, there was this file and these are the contents of the file. And then you show it to them and you're like, oh, wow, you were able to get into my system. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Here's what I did. Here's how I got in. I used the MS-17 Eternal Blue vulnerability and I got into your system. You need to upgrade your systems, right? So like basic things like that can be proof that you've done exactly what you were hired to do. And that's all you need to do. You don't need to go ahead and crash their infrastructure and crash their systems and all of that stuff. So hopefully that served useful to you. Hopefully you got some value out of this exercise and you were able to learn a few things. Now, if you did get value out of this video, I do encourage you to go ahead and like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel, especially in the offensive pen testing or CompTIA PenTest Plus playlists. Those playlists are, as the names imply, very heavily focused on penetration testing exercises and penetration testing philosophy. The offensive playlist, the offensive pen testing playlist, is just starting out, but the CompTIA PenTest Plus has been around for a while. So I started this playlist a while ago, and it has currently over 30. There we go. So it has currently over 34 videos on it. I didn't know that it gave us like the preview if I hover over it. So it has 34 videos on it. As you can see, there's also the Linux Plus playlist that's already up and running. This one actually has been completed. People have used it very many times to go ahead and pass their examinations. Network Plus, same thing. Security Plus, same thing. People have used these playlists successfully to prep for and pass their examinations. CompTIA PenTest Plus, all of the lecture materials for that playlist is already done. And now we are in the practical exercise section where we do things like the stuff that we did in our video today. So there's a lot of good content in those videos. And then as we just go forward, we're just going to launch more and more stuff when it comes down to penetration testing exercises and all of that for people who might be interested in learning more about pen testing. And then of course we have members only videos that are reserved for Hackaholics Anonymous and the members first videos and things like that. So all of that you'll get a little notification on how you can access it. And then the recommendations that might come to you individually as you go through the series of videos on our channel, popular videos, all of the playlists that we have over here, SOC Level 1, SOC Level 2, and Security Engineering, which are kind of the more popular ones because most people are interested in defensive security and becoming security engineers or security analysts and all that stuff. And so if you have any comments, you can drop them in the comment section below. Ask any questions about what we went through today. You may have some challenges if you're going through the Try Hack Me room and you ran across some of the stuff that I just ran across Plus as well. So if you have any questions or any comments, drop them in the comment section below. Feel free to roam around on this channel and try to find any other videos that might be relevant to what you're looking for. And of course, make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel, and you can tag along with us as we go ahead and develop more content. And of course, there's the AI for cybersecurity playlist, which is actually one of my favorite ones. I completely forgot to even talk about that, but it's right here. So AI for cybersecurity, it has currently 4 videos on it, which I'm super excited about. And that's going to be a really big playlist. I'm super excited about the AI for cybersecurity playlist. And there's going to be a lot of good stuff. I have so many things. The outline for that course, that series is insane. And I've already begun, obviously we've already begun uploads, and as I develop more content about it, the world of AI keeps advancing. So it's like, holy crap, it gets even more, it's so cool. It's a very cool thing. So make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel. And of course, there's Hackaholics Anonymous. To get the PenTest Plus notes, practice questions, and to join a supportive community of like-minded people like you, consider joining the Hackaholics Anonymous membership community. We have 4 tiers: the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. And each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels will get exclusive content like line-by-line code explanations for how to create cybersecurity and PenTest Plus scripts, like exclusive downloads that they will get. For example, the notes document for this PenTest Plus and everything that I'm using for the lectures, as well as all of the practice questions and everything else that will go along, that will be made for the scripts and everything else that we're going to be doing for the PenTest Plus training series. There will be free pre-made monthly Python automations that have to do with system administration, cybersecurity defense, as well as, of course, PenTest Plus and ethical hacking. And then there's going to be monthly live streams with me every single month, plus so many other things that you would get as a part of being a member of Hackaholics Anonymous in these tiers. To join, you can simply click the link in the description below, or you can go to our homepage and click the join button there, or you can go to youtube.com/@hankhackshackers/join, and you'll be able to join Hackaholics Anonymous. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads, and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below, and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease. And I will see you in our next video later.